Hi everyone, thanks for coming to the Google Apps Vault EDU webinar. I'm Jerry Hong, I'm the Vault Product Manager, and here with me are Ravi Kumar, the Product Strategist, and Clay Moffett, the Google Apps for EDU Sales. Quick rundown of the agenda. We'll go through an overview of what is Vault. Afterwards, we'll talk about why Vault is important for EDU and nonprofit organizations. Ravi will help us go through a demo and show us the key features that Vault enables. And then after that, I'll talk about the Vault roadmap and touch upon the Postini to Vault migration. And then we'll go through question and answering. With that, let's go through the overview. Google Apps Vault is a next-generation in-place archive, retention, and e-discovery solution for apps built on a modern, 100% web-based architecture. Google Apps Vault reduces the risk associated with litigation, investigation, and internal regulatory compliance, and lowers the business and IT costs by enabling companies and organizations, EDU, to more effectively manage the information stored in Google Apps. In addition, it provides domain-wide search for Gmail and on-the-record Gmail chat, makes it easy to create systemized, repeatable, and defensible data management policies, and automates legal, hold, and e-discovery capabilities to preserve relevant information. Vault requires no additional hardware or infrastructure, and it saves IT costs as well as resources. Google Apps Vault provides unique capabilities, including instant on functionality, in-place data management with no duplication requirement, and the security and ease of use and reliability of Google Apps. So why do schools need Vault? The use cases are identified in the 4 quadrants. Let's start with the first one, Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. Title 5 of this procedure governs discovery, and to be compliant, schools are required to be able to produce ESI, or electronically stored information, when needed. There might be different retention requirements, but Vault provides a flexible framework for organizations to create custom retention rules to meet their needs. Internal disciplinary matter is another use case. Vault allows the admins to identify and pinpoint the origins of inappropriate messages, whether that's between faculty members, faculty to student, or student to student. Vault also allows admins to share specific matters with the appropriate teachers to facilitate bullying investigations. Lastly, data retention. With Vault, you'll never have to worry about malicious or accidental end-user data deletion. Vault's retention and preservation features will keep your data safe based on your specified period. So what about pricing? We're happy to announce that there's a huge discount for our EDU customers. If you enroll your entire faculty and staff, the discount will be more than 80% off the regular price. You'll only pay for faculty and staff members at $10 per user per year, and students will get Vault for free. Vault will be enabled for all users in the domain, and you can set retention policies specifically for just your faculty members or students, or even both. We also have discounts available for nonprofit organizations, and they'll be at $30 per user per year, or 40% off the regular price. With that, I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, Ravi, to do the demo.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, so next 15, 20 minutes or so, I'll demo the Vault product. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to type in the question and answer box, or we'll field your questions at the end of this session, all right? All right, so if you're an administrator, you're familiar with this screen. So this is Google Apps cPanel, administration panel. So once you log into your administrative panel, you can access Vault in 2 ways. Number 1, you could click on More option on the top and select Vault, and that opens your Vault interface. There's another way to open vaults. For example, if you're not an administrator, but if you have a legal department looking over some of the matters that you created in Vault, and if you've shared some of those results, they can log into Gmail and then type in ediscovery.google.com, and that's another way to access Vault. All right. All right. So when you access Vault, this is the Vault homepage. As Jerry has indicated, there are a lot of features in Vault that are categorized into 3 buckets, right? So the first thing is archiving. The second feature set is data retention, and the third set is e-discovery. Archiving, so when you enable Vault, archiving is automatically enabled for all your content in Gmail and for on-the-record chats. So you don't have to do anything special to enable archiving, so it's automatically archived for you when you enable Vault service. All right? So let's move on to the second set of features, which is retention. If you look at the Vault interface here, you see the retention here, and then you see matters, which is related to e-discovery feature set, which I'll get to you in a few minutes, and reports. So I'll start with the retention feature set. All right, what is data retention? So data retention is something that you place, it's a setting in Vault that allows you to retain your records for a period of time. So it's very flexible to allow you to retain records either based on the accounts or the type of data and labels and things like that. All right. So when it comes to retention, there are 2 types of retention. So the first type is the default retention, and the default retention governs all content in your mailboxes in your entire domain, right? So if you set a retention policies, it applies to all mailboxes, all accounts in your domain. So that's number 1. The second type of retention is rule-based retention. You would typically use rule-based retention if you want to apply data retention policies to a subset of data in your domain, all right? Again, number 1, default retention, which governs all content, and you would use rule-based retention in order to apply data retention policies for a subset of data, all right? So, I'll give you a couple examples so that we can understand better on retention, all right? So let us suppose you're an IT administrator in a school, and your legal department or information governance department, they decide that they want to apply data retentions in your school, and here are the 2 requirements they come up with. Number 1, they want to retain all data in the domains, all mailboxes, for say 10 years, all right? And the second requirement is they want to retain faculty data for only 3 years, all right? And for the rest of the mailboxes, it's 10 years. So let's start with default rule, because remember, default rule governs all content. So the rule is they want to retain all data for 10 years. So I'll start with modify default rule. So since I already have a default retention policies, it says modify default rule. If you don't have a retention policies, usually when you sign up for Vault, if you're a new Vault user, you will not have default retention rule. So you have to create one. So click that button, and then it allows you to set up the default retention period. In this particular example, I want to retain everything for 10 years, so which is 3,650 days. So you set up retention in days, and click on set default, and it gives you a warning that after 3,650 days, the content will be automatically removed and purged from your mailboxes, and it's permanently deleted. And click OK. All right, and also this retention period goes by the receive date. For example, if I am setting a 10-year retention period, the retention period is not calculated based on today's date, It is calculated based on the email's received date. For example, if you have a 11-year-old email, and if I set a 10-year retention now, so your old emails which are older than 10 years will get purged, right? So it's always based on the received date. All right, going back to our example. So the first requirement we're satisfied by creating a default rule, 10 years. Now our second requirement. The second requirement is to create a retention for your faculty to retain only 3 years worth of data. So in order to do that, going back to our definition, so I'm trying to create a retention for a subset of documents here. So I'll create a rule-based retention. I'm clicking Add Rule button here. And now it shows me the screen where I can set the retention. So the first field is organization. If you click on this, it actually shows your OU structure in your domain, which you have already set up in your cPanel. So it pulls all the OU structure. So in our case, I have OU called faculty. So I'll select faculty OU, and then you can also add terms, search terms. If you want to narrow down the data, you can use any search term that you can use in Gmail. So in addition to the regular keyword searches, Gmail supports more than about a dozen or so search labels and things like that. So you can search based on labels, you can narrow it down based on dates, from address to address and things like that. So you can type in search terms here, and then you can narrow down by dates here, to, from field. And in our case, the retention is for 3 years for my entire faculty. So I'm going to type in 1085 days, which is 3 years, and click on Save. Before clicking on Save, I can also preview my search criteria. For example, if I have typed in search criteria here, and if I want to make sure that search criteria is correct, you can type in an account name and then click on Preview so that you can verify whatever the search criteria that typed in is right. In my case, I don't have any search criteria, so I'm clicking Save. Click OK on Warning. And now I've set up the retention for faculty. All right. All right. So when it comes to retention, there are two rules, right? So whenever you set up a rule-based retention, it overrides the default retentions. For example, in this particular example, faculty, right? So for faculty mailboxes, 3-year retention applies, not 10 years. For example, if you have a student mailbox, the 10-year retention applies because we don't have a specific rule for students. So it goes back to the default retention policy. All right, so that's it for retention. Let's move on to the second feature set, which is e-discovery feature set. So if you look at the left navigation pane, you will see a section called Matters. Matters is a legal term associated with e-discoveries. So when you think of matters, think about a physical case file or a folder, right? So it basically holds all the information about a specific case. A case could be an external litigation, so someone sues your school, or it could be an internal investigation like bullying investigation or sexual harassment or something that's going on internally, right? And you could also create cases if you want to do a little bit more research on compliance and things like that, all right? So let us suppose if you are an IT administrator and you get a phone call from your legal department saying that you have an investigation that's going on bullying, all right? So as an IT administrator, I'll just create a matter and then go forward, right? So I already have some examples here that I created matters for a car manufacturing company. So just to save time, I'll just reuse some of the information that I already have. So let us suppose if you're an IT admin for a car brake manufacturing company. Your legal team says there is a legal suit on your company, and that they know that there are 4 people involved, so they give you the names of those 4 people, all right? So the first and foremost thing that I need to do as an admin is to create a matter. When you click on create, you can type in the matter name. In this particular case, again, think about as a case, right? Case file name, and you can enter some description. And if you look at this car brake investigation, I'm just opening an existing one, right? So once you create a matter, then you will see 4 types of activity that you can do in the matter. So you can start preserving. So you already know that there are 4 people who are involved in this particular case, all right? Therefore, the first thing that I wanted to do is to preserve data to make sure that none of the data that user deletes or none of the data that the data retention policies which automatically delete. I don't want to lose any of those data, right? The first thing I would do is apply litigation holds, all right? So currently I have litigation holds on 3 people. I'll apply a litigation hold on another person. So in order to create a litigation hold, I'm clicking on create hold button, and I am entering the email address. As soon as you start typing, it automatically shows the drop-down list, so I can select and click add users. So as soon as I create litigation hold, again, any data retention policies will not apply to these litigation hold. Data is preserved until you remove the litigation hold, all right? Now I move on to the next step. My next logical step is to basically start searching for the terms that my legal team has given me, all right? So in this particular case, my legal team wanted to get all emails related to brakes for these 4 people, all right? So when I clicked on search, you will see the source column on top, the source section. So I can search across all mailboxes when I select all data, which is the default behavior. But if I want to search only the data in those 4 mailboxes that I know that I preserved with litigation hold, you can click on held data. So my requirement is to search only in those 4 mailboxes. So I clicked on held data, and I start typing in the terms, say keyword is brakes for me, and then and you can also put additional filters like from date and to date, and then click on search. Before clicking search, you can also see how many results that you may get when you search for it, and but in this particular case, I'm just clicking on search. So depending upon how much data you have in your mailboxes and what kind of search you're searching, it may take anywhere from a few seconds to maybe a minute. All right, so I got all these search results related to brakes, all right? So once I get the search results, I can do 3 things, all right? So I can either export results or save results, save the query itself, and then share. So I'll start exporting. Let us suppose if you're okay with the search results and if you want to export this result set and send it over to your legal team or compliance team, you can just click on export results. And give it a name and click on begin export, all right? So when you click on begin export, it starts to exporting all the data in the search results. And depending upon how much content you may have, it may take anywhere from a few seconds to a few minutes. But the good thing is it goes in the background. So while it is exporting, you can come back and you work on other stuff, right? Now, let me go back to the search results. All right. So at this point of time, I can also search, save this query. Let us suppose if I want to use this query later, because I know that this case may actually go on for a while or whatever. I can click on waiting for the search results. All right, I can click on Save Query, right? So that you don't have to, if you have a complex query, you don't have to type in again and again. I can type in a name here, and then you can save it. So if you look at the left navigation pane, now I have the new query here. So the next time when I come back, all I have to do is basically click on this, all right? So that's the second action that you can do with search results. So the third thing that you can do is, let us suppose if your legal team wants to look at your search results. So you're not sure these are the results you wanted, so you wanted them to take a look at it. So what you can do is click on Share. So when you click on Share, you will see the familiar sharing settings that you see in Google Docs when you want to share a document. So all you have to do is basically type in the name, and you can share those results with other people, and they will get an automated notification with a link, and then they can come back to this. Search results to review your search results. So that's another action that you can do. All right. All right, moving along. So the next third set of feature set within eDiscovery is, again, looking at exports. So currently it's still exporting, but once it is ready, it will show all the exported data right here. And you will be able to download this export data. And all your exports are available for 15 days for you to download it. And the next section is auditing. As an IT admin, whatever you do within the Vault interface, whether it would be searching or creating matters or retention, things like that, all actions that you do within Vault are logged, all right? And if you have an internal compliance team, or if you're working on an external case or whatever, so if the attorney asks for some auditing and supporting information, you can provide audit data. So when you click on Audit, select dates from and to dates, and then select users. So in this particular case, if I only have like one IT admin, so in this case that's me, you can type in the IT admins and then click on Download CSV. And before doing that, so you have the flexibility of exporting only a subset of log data. If you select all, a lot of document records will be exported because everything is logged here. So let us suppose if you're only interested in export actions, so you can say unselect everyone and then select only export actions. So you have the flexibility to export all data related to a person within that time frame or a specific actions. All right. Now, let's go back to export. So I'll show you how the export files look like. So in this particular case, I have 7 files. So if you look at these M boxes, all emails are exported in MBox format. And you will look at some metadata where you have label information, things like that. So once you export this out, you can give it to your legal teams or whoever is investigating, and they can review the data offline. All right, so that's it from the eDiscovery perspective. So I'll cover the last section in the Vault interface, which is reports. So when you click on reports, let's click on holds. So as an admin, you may get questions on basically how many people are currently on litigation hold, or if you have a question about, okay, how many matters a person is involved in. For example, in this particular case, look at my first user. So this user is involved in 9 matters. So when you click on that person's name, it shows you the list of all the matters that a person is involved in. So that kind of gives you a good idea on how many people are in litigation hold, and also drill a little bit deep into the reports. And when you click on audit, so we've looked at the audit when you were part of the matter. So you can do auditing on a specific matter by clicking on matter and click audit. Or you can do a generic audit, which may basically cross across multiple matters. So you look at the same screen. So from date to date, you can add Vault users, and you can click on check boxes. Now you will get the report across all matters, not just on one matter. All right. So that's it for my demo here. Let me go back to a couple screens. All right, so I have a couple slides detailing some of the features in Vault, and I think I've covered most of the feature set in my demo, but I'll quickly skim through these slides to see if there is anything else I left out. All right. Okay, so retention, again, we talked about default retention, types of retention. One thing that I did not mention is, let us suppose if you have an email where two query-based rules apply to that email. And guess what? So basically, now you have a conflict, right? So please be aware that whenever there is a data set or a specific email where there are two rules that apply to that particular data set, longest rule wins. For example, if you have rule number 1 that says 3 years and rule number 2 that says 5 years, the 5-year rule wins because you want to keep the data longest to make sure that to make the data available for other matters. And again, the rule-based retention always trumps default rule. So that's another rule that we talked about. And let us suppose if you don't have a data retention policies, right? So when you first sign up for Vault, there's no retention policies. If you leave out the retention policies, basically, whenever your user deletes some content, that content will be available in Vault for e-discovery searches up to 30 days. E-discovery, we talked about how to preserve, search, export, and audit. Preservation, we talked about legal hold. Basically, it's transparent to the end user, so whenever you put a legal hold on a mailbox, user will not know. So it'll be very transparent, so user can delete all the content they want, but you will have access to all the content in Vault. And most importantly, there's no quota for the content that you're holding within Vault. So there's a quota for Gmail, which is 25 gig, but for the backend Vault storage, for all the deleted data, you don't have any quotas. Search capabilities, we talked about how you can search across the entire domain or only the held data, litigation held data, and how you can save searches. Exporting, we talked about how to export the search results. There's a 10 GB max inbox size, so let us suppose if you have a user who has more than 10 GB and the search results includes more than 10 GB worth of data for that particular user, basically Vault breaks it down into multiple inboxes. And export remains for 15 days. We talked about auditing. And again, so if you look at other features in Vault, so basically it gives you 99.9% SLA. It's very easy to set up. You can set up Vault within minutes, right? So in cPanel, maybe less than a minute. And also language support, so which is very important here. So Vault interface is available in 28 languages. So we have cPanel available in 28 languages, so Vault is available in all those languages, and it also supports content up to 50+ languages. And most importantly, role-based permissions. So let us suppose in a smaller schools, probably you have like one person doing all Vault-related activity. But in larger universities or schools, if you have multiple people working on portions of e-discovery process, one person creating matters, one person creating searches and things like that. So Vault allows you to delegate administration to portions of Vault. So basically you can give one person to create only matters and then searches and things like that. So you can do delegated administration. And if you look at the key differentiators, I think one of the key differentiator is very simple to set up. So if you look at Other solutions, you may need to spend a lot of time in basically integrating your mail system and setting it up. And in case of Vault, all you have to do is basically enable Vault service and then set up your default retention policy if you choose to, and that's it. It's on instantly. And it's very highly scalable because it uses the power, Google's power, and it has the resilient infrastructure. And as you probably know, Google have multiple data centers. Your data is replicated across multiple data centers to make sure your data is always available. And it's cost effective. Like Jerry said, it's 80% discount on the regular retail price, which is $10 per faculty member when you buy for all faculty members. All student accounts are for free. Basically, Vault is basically unique in the aspects of the infrastructure that it provides and the content language support, and also from the pricing perspective. All right, and I'll turn this to Jerry to discuss about the Vault roadmap.
Thanks, Ravi. So this is Jerry again, and I like to run through a 2013 roadmap with you guys. What you see at the top is a timeline of where we're currently at. That's the orange circle, and what we hope to accomplish in the first half of this year, which is coming up in a couple months, and also in the second half. So right now we've launched some pretty cool stuff. In January, we launched a new awesome interface. So the demo that Ravi showed you guys just a couple minutes ago, that is through the new interface. Secondly, also launched OU-based retention. So not only can you define retention rules on your entire domain, you can define it based on your organizational structure that you've already defined in the cPanel. And another thing that we've also launched was the retention preview, so that you can preview your messages to make sure that your retention rules are acting correctly. Now, looking ahead on a couple months, we are going to integrate with a new data source, basically the Docs and Drive data source. We hope to have this launched version 1 in a couple months. What version 1 is that it includes the exporting and searching capabilities of this new data source in Vault. So you'll be able to do a domain-wide search, you can do account-level searches, and find important enterprise or important business documents in all your users' Drive accounts. Retention and preservation aspects of this will come in version 2, and that will be something we'd like to have ready and launched by the second half of this year. Other things to consider in the first half of 2013 includes the concept of targeted legal hold. But what Ravi showed you earlier was the capabilities of putting an entire account or entire mailbox on hold, meaning that the retention rules no longer apply because we want to preserve all of that user's data. At times, there's no need to preserve all of a particular user's account. You only want to preserve the relevant data that pertains to a particular case. Targeted legal hold does exactly that. You can define a search query in a way such that it keeps a subset of the user's data on hold. We think this is pretty powerful, and we're excited to have this available soon. Next is Vault retention labels. And so this is a common feature request, and it's I'm very happy that we're making a lot of progress here. So what this is Ravi showed you how you can define retention rules based on OUs, labels, queries, anything you want. Up till this point, if you wanted to use labels as part of your retention query, you have to send a message out to all your end users, all your students, all your faculty members, and ask them to create a specific label, right? Whether that's 5-year, 10-year, keep indefinitely, or any label of your choice. That's prone to user error because end users can accidentally mistype a few characters. There could be misspellings, space issues, etc. What Vault Retention Labels allows the Vault admin to do is to create a domain-wide label and push it out to all the end users. AKA, in the end user's Gmail, they will see it as a Vault label. They can apply these labels to whatever messages they want, just like any normal label, and you can be assured that the labels are created correctly. In the Vault interface, you can define a retention rule based on these labels. Another thing that's coming out in the first half of this year is partial domain licensing. For those of you who are interested in enabling Vault for only a subset of your users. This may or may not pertain to everyone, because in order to get the discounts, 80% discount, you'll want to opt in all your faculty and staff members. But this will give you the ability to decide whether or not you want to opt in your students, or a subset of your students, or just the researchers. It gives you full granular support and being able to assign and unassign Vault licenses to specific users. The users that don't have Vault licenses assigned to them won't have any retention or preservation features applied to them. So that's a choice that we're enabling in the first half of this year. Going into the second half of the year, we're going to work on Docs and Drive full support, including preservation and retention aspects, and potentially brainstorm ways of how to handle revisions and introduce that sometime in 2014. We're also going to look at other integrations with different Google services. As you are probably aware, if you use the Google Apps domain, Gmail, Docs, and Drive aren't the only ways of creating and sharing business-critical data. There are other services at Google that we will want to integrate with Vault as well. And so that will come, we'll start the discussions in the second half of this year. Lastly, we are also working on an even better interface, and it's pretty exciting. We don't have anything to show right now, but we're working through some mocks. It's going to be very intuitive, and as well as we're going to try to make searching even easier across all these different data integrations. With that, let's touch on the Postini to Vault migration in case you are interested in that. So first off, let's do a feature comparison. Just looking down this list, Vault on the left column, Postini and GMD on the right column, you'll see that Vault is essentially superior in almost every feature. From data support, we support not only just email, but also chat and soon Docs and Drive and potentially other Google services down later this year. There's a lot more language support. Searching is much more powerful. SOAs are great at 99.9%. Setup is easy. It's instant on. Remember that Vault is an in-place archive. So the moment you turn on Vault and set retention policies, we will be able to retain all your existing emails based on the logic that you set up. Data retention, there's no limit. You can go up to essentially forever. GMD has a 10-year limit, and there's a lot of role-based administration features that you can do with Vault. So if you are a Postini customer right now, you don't have to worry too much. Your account will be migrated to Vault in 2013. We will support Gmail, Hybrid, and Exchange customers. For the Lotus Notes customers, unfortunately, there are no current plans to support Lotus Notes for now. So how would how will we migrate your data? How would you migrate your data? The answer is pretty simple. We are working on an automated migration tool that will essentially migrate your emails, retention policies, legal holds, matters, and we'll try to make sure that we're going to do our very, very best to make sure we migrate all the metadata as well as all the content to Vault. The only thing that won't be migrated is the saved searches. Due to the syntax, due to the different syntactical behavior and also the infrastructure, the saved searches itself won't be migrated, but you will get a chance to essentially translate it to a Vault search before we turn off your GND access. We want to make it very clear that as a customer, we want to make sure that this experience is as seamless as possible, so that you will have the ability to verify the settings in Vault after the migration is complete, before we turn on any retention or auto purge functionality. So rest assured that your data is safe and there will be a verification process. For this, the migration process, we will essentially send out a notification 60 to 90 days or 2 to 3 months before the transition, so you have plenty of time to review it and make sure that everything is handled correctly, and you will be updated throughout this whole process. I'd like to open up for question and answering.
All right, so we're just going to be pulling questions from the question and answer section of the WebEx webinar, so please ask your questions there and we'll try to address as many as we can. Quickly, we're getting a whole lot of questions about pricing, so I'm going to try to give an exhaustive summary of what the deal is with pricing. It is $10 per faculty and staff user per year. We're just charging according to individuals. So FTE is a really good figure. Usually FTE is a good thing for us to base our pricing off of. Our philosophy is that we want you to pay $10 for every single user that you have that you are sort of liable for because they are an employee. So the number of employees that you're liable for their electronic communications, those are the ones that we want you paying $10 for. If your students and non-faculty and staff users are in the same general Google Apps account, so you can have multiple domains, you can have subdomains, as long as everything's managed from the same Google Apps control panel, when you pay for all of your faculty and staff, we're just turning on Vault for your entire Google Apps environment. So every single user therein will be archived by Google Apps Vault. As mentioned, we're going to allow, schools that don't want to archive or have viewable student mail, for example. Later this year, there will be the ability to only turn on archiving for just your faculty and staff, but currently, we're going to turn it on for everybody. Additionally, a lot of people have a Google Apps account for their faculty and staff, and then a separate Google Apps account for their students. Similarly, some schools or some districts with multiple schools have several apps accounts for the several different schools, but there's a central billing platform, so the district is paying for all of those schools. In those sort of unique cases, it does take a little bit longer for us to draw up the contracts and get all the approvals, but typically we can accommodate that and just put those multiple apps environments on a single contract. But be aware that it's a little bit more difficult, so it might take us a little bit longer. Another thing, you give us sort of an FTE-like number, and that's what we base the contract off of. If throughout the year you're having, some teachers retire, you're hiring new teachers, you have substitute teachers, et cetera, that's fine. You can be adding users and everything. We actually build in a 20% buffer into the pricing. So as long as if you pay for 1,000 users today, you can add, pretty much up to 200 users throughout the year and not really worry about it. If you absorb another school or something halfway through the year and your school doubles in size, then you can reach back out to your sales rep and say, hey, we doubled in size, we need to increase our licensing, and we can just prorate a contract that covers you for the remainder of the year. Then, when your renewal comes up, the next year, you just give us the most updated number, FTE number, and that's what we base your renewal contract off of, and then you just keep on going. So it really is an honor system. We really want it to be as easy as possible. The main things to realize is that you need to pay for every single one of your faculty and staff. Another thing is that right now, because the process is offline and we just kind of are making this available to all Google Apps for Education users, there is a $1,500 contract minimum. The way we can sort of get around that is by allowing you to pay for up to 3 years up front. So if you only have 50 faculty and staff, you can just pay for 3 years. So that's 50 times 10 is 500 for 1 year. You pay 3 years up front, so $1,500. That's sort of the least we can accommodate right now. We understand that some schools are super tiny and only have, say, maybe 20 users. We're working on sort of streamlining our billing processes and allowing people to purchase for themselves, purchase with credit card, et cetera, et cetera. But for now, it's an offline process, check or wire transfer, and the minimum is $1,500. So hopefully that covers everybody's pricing concerns. And now we're going to move on to some more product questions that we've seen. One that I'm seeing, so the .inbox. So the format that we export is .mbox. It's just a general mail file format. Some people are asking about .pst, so can you answer a little bit of that?
Sure. So .mbox is one of the known mail format, and so many of your, so let us suppose if you have an inbox and if you want to open it to view emails, you can use any email client like Thunderbird, and I think you also can use Apple Mail to view it. And many of the legal platforms, so your legal team may have additional investigation tools, and almost all the investigation tools, they support inbox, all right? If you have a separate concern, we really like to know what is the concern in terms of like having PST. And currently, we don't support exporting in PST. However, if you really, really want an inbox to be converted into PST, there are certain tools out there. Some are paid tools, some are free tools, which you can use to convert inbox to PST.
Thanks. All right, another question that we're getting a lot of is based around retention and what happens when retention expires. This is something we hear a lot about, but ultimately, something to know is that if the retention limit on a message expires, it is removed from Vault, and then because of the fact that there's no data duplication, the message is also removed from the end user's inbox. And that's actually a best practice from a legal perspective because you are liable for any mail that you are essentially the owner of. And you own all mail in Vault, but you also own all mail in Google Apps. So if something's in Google Apps, you need to be able to discover it, and the way you discover that is through Vault. So that's the reason that if retention expires on a message, it will be removed from everything. So the user's going to lose it as well. And that's the reason that we have things like Vault-specific retention labels that allow users to put important mail that they want in perpetuity into those labels so that they aren't removed. There are other ways to kind of set clever labels up and clever retention rules up so that the user has more control over which messages are removed permanently or not. But that's definitely the perspective. Do you want to add anything, or is that?
No, that's pretty accurate.
All right, perfect. So yeah, we did have a good reason for that. One of our product managers is a lawyer, and that's sort of, we came up with that policy based off of the legal perspective. So that's sort of the reasoning behind that. Let's see. So a massive export. So if you want to leave Google Apps Vault, you're done, you have another solution that you would like to move to, but you have, say, 3 years or 10 years worth of archived data in Google Apps Vault. We do support you taking all of your data out. Right now, you basically just set up a massive export, so you essentially search that, you send out a search that searches across all data, and then you just export it that way. What that will give you is a file. As you saw, our export files, you have one file for every user. So essentially, you would have files for every user in your system, and the maximum export size The maximum export size, I believe, is 1 gigabyte.
10 gigabytes.
10 gigabytes. So if a user has 30 gigabytes of data, you're going to get 3 separate files for that user. A litigation hold does not interfere with a user's ability to function within Google Apps. So a litigation hold, the user that is on hold will never know that they are on hold unless you stop them in the hallways and let them know that they're on litigation hold.
And again, as soon as you put the litigation hold, it's an indefinite hold of data, so none of the user deletes or data retentions will not apply to that mailbox, which is no data deletion is happening.
Yeah. There's a question, can I go over how I can see all the rules that I may have applied for all the holds, and then how I can remove the hold of a rule? So basically, you know, you can see all the holds that you've put on. There's a way to just see every single user that's under hold, and then as you go through matters, you can quickly see who is on hold for each matter. If you want to remove a hold, you just select that hold and say remove hold. Similarly, if there's a retention rule that you want to remove, you just select that retention rule and you say remove this rule. And it's as simple as that.
And again, retention rule is different from hold, right? So retention rule applies to, for example, in my previous example, to the entire faculty. So let us suppose if your school has a different policy now, the policy has changed, and if you want to change that to 3 years, from 3 years to 5 years, all you have to go is basically go to that retention rule and change the retention period from 1085 days, which is 3 years, to 5 years, all right? And that's how you do that. And litigation hold is completely different. It applies when you're doing investigations within matters.
And we had a valid question by Andrew Pelter. I think he left, but it's something to note. If you don't want to worry about all this retention stuff and, you know, purging data, et cetera, again, there are no restrictions on retention. So if you want to go ahead and put a 50-year default retention and set no rules, you just know that any data from now until 50 years from now will be maintained. And for a lot of schools, you don't really mind. It's not like having the additional data is something that you want to avoid. So if you're a small school and you don't want to micromanage your retention, feel free to just set it to, I think the maximum period is 2.7 million years or something.
Something ridiculous.
Some ridiculously high number is the maximum retention. So feel free to just make up a super large number and leave it put, and then you never even have to log into Vault until, you know, you actually need to.
But again, just with a word of caution, many schools or companies may have issues on basically retaining for large, like 100 years or 200 years, because retaining data is basically opens up for like liability, right? So you may want to check with your legal team or information governance team before you put any retention rules.
A note about educational institutions versus nonprofits. If you are an educational institution in that you are teaching kids or you directly support organizations that teach kids, you know, whether it's K-12 or higher ed or, you know, a specialty school beyond that, basically a Google Apps for Education account that is an educational institution in the truest sense of the word. Those are the companies that qualify for educational discounting. If you are a nonprofit, so you might be on Google Apps for Education, because that's, especially longer ago, we used to just put everybody into into Google Apps for Education, regardless of whether you were an educational institution or a nonprofit. If you're a nonprofit, you do qualify for discounts, but it's less of a discount. And the way that you can sign up for Vault is just by going to our standard Google Apps for Business sales line. So just go to google.com/A and click on Contact Sales if you're a nonprofit, and you can purchase that way. Let's see. If you have existing archives in something other than Postini, the way to migrate mail into Vault right now is just migrating mail into Google Apps generally. So look at Google Apps email migration options, and as long as you can migrate the mail that way, when it shows up in Google Apps, it's also going to show up to Google Apps Vault, and it will be archived at that point. We don't have any, you can't really purchase different capabilities of Vault a la carte. You kind of get everything. So we just showed you sort of everything. A lot of schools don't need all the legal tools, but you'll still have them. A lot of schools don't need some of the other capabilities, but you'll still have them. So it's just a $10 flat price regardless. Recovering data, right now you can allow, as long as a user has an account within your Google Apps environment, you can give that user admin privileges the same way you can give them admin privileges to, be able to do other administrative things within Google Apps. So if a teacher says, oh no, I think I deleted all this mail, you can create a matter and give them restricted access to just their Vault data so that they can kind of operate within this walled garden of sorts where they can find their own data and then export it. We don't have a quick recover button. There's no way to find a message, see that it was deleted, and then just sort of undelete it and it pops back into the inbox. But we have received that feedback, so we'll work on it. There's no change to MX records needed. As long as you're using Google Apps for Mail, we just turn it on. It's sort of a turnkey solution. You don't need to change any back-end settings. Right now, you can archive on-the-record chats, but we don't have any way to force chats to be on the record. So if you have chat enabled for you can disable chat altogether, but if you have chat enabled for your users, they can always take a chat off the record and you won't be able to see it in Vault. But we have received feedback on that as well, and we would like to make more granular capabilities around administrating those privileges in the future. So stay tuned on that.
So a couple of things that I wanted to mention. So first of all, we talked about the delegation admin. So I missed, I did not show where to set the delegated admin. So if you go to the cPanel, domain settings and admin role, here you can create a new role, and then you can then create some of the delegated administration roles. So if you have like multiple people doing matters, and so if you click on privileges, you can see the list of things that you can do in Apps Vault, manage matters, administrative matters, and things like that. So here's where you can set the privileges. And also I wanted to show you, for those of you who have GMD or Archiving and Discovery currently with Postini, again, as Jerry mentioned, you will be notified 60 to 90 days before the migration. I want to share this website with you, postini-transition.googleapps.com. I'm showing that on the screen now. So go to this website. We are updating as we go on the migrations on this website. So you can see the feature comparison, timeline, FAQs, and all the good details about the transition. So this is a great way to get more information on Postini transition.
A couple of other notes, additional support beyond just docs and stuff. We have, I believe we have plans to add support for other Google Apps related services like sites, as well as Calendar. Calendar is kind of a big one. We definitely want to add archiving support for Calendar. So know that, the long-term vision is anything that you could potentially be liable for within Google Apps, we want you to be able to archive as part of Vault. So that's sort of the long-term vision. And again, when you enable Vault, so when we turn on Vault, any data in Google Apps is, there's a snapshot taken basically right when Vault turns on, and it is retroactive in that it'll look at all existing data and it will all be applied to Vault. It's not just from the moment that you turn on Vault moving forward. But of course, any messages that were deleted and purged from the system, months ago, when you turn on Vault, those won't magically be, recovered. They're deleted forever if Vault wasn't enabled at the time that they were deleted. You can purchase through a reseller or through Google. If you have E-rate requirements, go through one of our vendors. I would recommend Cumulus Global, but there are various Google Apps resellers. Search for Google Apps for Education Reseller. There are lots of vendors that kind of specialize in education as well, and they'll be able to assist. So I think we've addressed just about everything. We have a whole lot of questions pouring in, but most of them have been addressed. If a user leaves, put them into a suspended state. If you delete the user from Google Apps, you're removing all of their Vault data as well. So if somebody retires, put that user into suspended. Don't delete them because you'll lose all their data and you might be liable for that even though they're no longer an employee. Ooh, are drafts searchable? They are.
Yes, so the question was whether drafts are searchable. Yes, anything in your Gmail account is searchable, so it could be drafts or it could be even trash.
What about, another question was text within an attachment. Do you know the answer to that?
I think we index the text within an attachment, but only for those attachments that can be indexable. For example, if it is a Word document or if it is a text document and things like that, so that's included. However, if you have a video file or an MP3 file which is not indexable, so those that information is not available.
Or a picture, so like in a PDF, some PDFs have actual text data that can be read from, but some PDFs are more like an image. So you wouldn't be able to pull the text from that image. I think we have some plans. Google Search does optical character recognition, OCR, on PDFs and stuff that are pictures of like a book page. I don't think that's in Gmail yet, but ultimately a good test is if you can search for it in Gmail, then you can also search for it in Vault. Questions about you're still presenting. No. Questions about students taking their data with them when they graduate. The best way for students to do that would just be to connect something like Thunderbird or any sort of mail reading application and then connect it to Gmail via IMAP, and then that way they can just download all mail locally onto their hard drive. I guess you could give them restricted access to Vault so that they could export their entire archive. Yeah, that would be an interesting solution. I just feel like there might be easier ways to do it. Is there any way to automate exports? There's no way to automate exports. If you need to run a weekly export, then you can just have a search template that pulls up the last week's data, and then you can export it at the same time every week. That would be the way to do that. If someone trashes an email, and then after 30 days that email is removed from their trash, that user will never be able to see that email again within their inbox, but Vault keeps that data. It isn't deleted for Vault. The only time the data is ever removed from Vault is when a retention period for a message expires. People are asking about spam and virus protection because that's what Postini used to offer. All spam and virus, as well as content filtering capabilities, are now part of Google Apps itself. So that's part of the free services. If you want to take advantage of those, just search for, Google Apps spam and virus, and you'll get a list of Help Center articles that let you know how to control those capabilities. Ballpark estimate for when the $1,500 minimum will be lifted. If it was up to me, it would be tomorrow, but basically there's a lot of stuff that has to happen regarding how we bill for schools. The reason it's a little complicated is because Google Apps for Education is free, so adding billing to something that is free is kind of more complicated than you would imagine, so that's the reason that that's still a restriction. I would say, we would like to maybe by the end of the year have a lower minimum than that, but honestly, there's no true estimate at all right now.
Give us a few seconds.
Yeah, Google Voice is not archived. If you get voicemail transcripts or text through email through Google Voice, then yes, that's mail data and it's archived. But actual audio and stuff, unless it's delivered as an attachment via email, stuff that exists within Google Voice is just within Google Voice. Another thing is like Hangouts. We are not going to be archiving Hangouts. Video data, you can imagine that would fill up our servers way, way faster than mail messages. So there are no plans to add, Hangouts or any sort of video support currently.
Again, so Hangouts is part of G+, right? So Google+. So currently, we only support email and on the record chats, and soon Docs. But again, like when the product, again, if at all, if it supports Google+, I think that's when you'll see more information on what's included and what's not. But currently, it's not supported.
All right, I think that's everything. We're about 15 minutes over, so we've got to go. Again, be on the lookout for an email within the next day or so from us where you can ask for more information, ask questions, or ask to be requested to go ahead and purchase the product. Thanks again for joining. This is Clay, and Ravi is still here as well. Jerry had to run along. But thank you all for joining. We really hope that this is something that will help you guys at your various schools and districts, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. All right, bye-bye.